Eliminate the workplace excuse. That's what leaders do. This is the Career Blind Spot Podcast.
Today's CBQ Career Blind Spot question. Courtney, does your creativity drive you crazy?
Yes, absolutely. Have you seen me the past couple of weeks trying to get like 20 house projects done at the same time?
This week
Yes.
or last week?
Okay.
So today I want to discuss, we will discuss that, I'll use this phrase a lot, lionize or demonize. And I think it's easy to see, be creative. You're encouraged to be creative. And I still want you to be creative. But in the workplace, sometimes it's annoying. And also, the main thing is we annoy ourselves. And not just while we're being creative, but I didn't realize I'm a perfectionist, or at least I can be, AKA I don't start because it's not perfect in my head.
Yeah.
And even something like this podcast that, we're nearing 200 episodes. It's crazy to think how much time I wasted on some really bad episodes. We've been together for a while. I can't remember exactly when you first took the assessment, but when I told the TTI assessment,
Yeah.
especially with the aesthetic motivator, I described you, or it described you, and I relayed it to you as creative. Do you remember your first reaction to being?
I'm not creative. I'm not an artist.
Yeah, that's what you said back then.
That's what I said.
Do you believe that today?
Oh, I just think I redefined what I think an artist actually is.
What is it?
I don't know. But at the time, I felt like an artist is somebody who could draw or paint well. Like that was my only definition of an artist. It wasn't like being creative in the way that I'm creative.
So if you're listening and you routinely check in, you ride the waves of constructive feedback and just Juan's ramble and Courtney's patience, you're a leader who my guess is at the very, very least, you have creative people on your team that you have a lot of patience for, but especially the second part, you yourself are creative, want to be more, or are perplexed and kind of in the dark like Courtney was back originally when she took the assessment, and kind of the more, maybe not surface level, but the more obvious results. Hey, you're introverted, you care about details, high C, high S. I said that reversed. And you love to learn, even though formal education is
Not
snooze
for me.
fest for you. At the time when you had a heart, you're very altruistic and socially driven. Now, get out of her way unless you're going to be efficient or you need an efficient problem
Right?
solved.
How much has my person?
Yeah, another podcast, probably a
Yeah.
whole series, but it does change, but especially those more higher, lower scores or intense scores. But back then, you didn't see yourself as creative. And when I said that, I think we're being redundant here, but catching you up, in my head, I'm like, because I kind of was like, no, I don't agree with you, but yeah, where is it? And I remember, do you remember when we went to your office at
Yes.
MX? And you were so proud back then.
Yes.
Why?
Because you came at a time when I had just gotten a promotion to like analyst, and I was so proud of my spreadsheet.
Yeah, this is like 15 years ago. And the biggest thing I noticed as a personal relationship was, wow, her workspace is way, not just organized, but like you had a flow, the user experience
Oh,
of being a
yeah.
worker versus at home.
And in the car, it was
Really
it was a
everywhere
pigsty,
else.
Yeah.
And kind of
it
a
was just chaos.
teaser to the acumen, which we'll talk about. I realized that self-worth and value in work, you were incentivized to have a method to your madness.
Yeah.
And not that I was like, oh, she's an artist here, but I was like, wait, her self-worth is a lot higher here than anywhere else. And it wasn't just that you were like militant. It was like you were not even showing off. You're like, hey, look at this. And this is how your parents were there. And it was a big deal.
Yeah.
And jump ahead to, I remember for the most part, you weren't too happy. No, actually with the analyst you were, but previously in a different role, you would come home and this is like 10, maybe 20% of the time, you'd be really happy. And I'm like, huh? And it was the days you were training people. Do you remember that?
Yes. Yes. I love training people.
And that's keyword love. And so I noticed, I was like, oh, you know what? It's, I said the phrase already, UX, creating experiences. And, one of our personal values is not necessarily, or one of our family values that you've said is important to you is not necessarily traditions, but do you remember the phrase you said a while ago?
No, I don't remember the exact phrase.
Drink some coffee before we do this, man.
Oh my gosh.
You wanted special experiences.
Yeah.
that it's not just about going to see Christmas lights or Easter or whatever it was.
Yeah, it's not all those like fuddy-duddy traditions that everybody does because they're traditions.
So what happens when you don't have any?
To me personally,
Yeah.
I get really sad. I feel left out, but I don't want to do the same thing all the time. Like our first tradition that we made together was the Christmas tree topper in our house is different every year, and we make them really silly.
Have you ever done a project at home or wanted to? Have maybe procrastinated? You have an idea and you're like, I'm going to do this. And you do everything but.
Yeah, I'm trying not to laugh because I finally just finished that project after years, and that is painting our interior doors.
Actually, I would say that was one of your most efficient. I have an idea and you executed on it.
False. I have had that idea for 3 years now, and I just have been wanting to do it, and I was so intimidated by trying to cover up the holes that I didn't never do it.
I mean, let's move it back to workplace stuff, but
Mhm.
from a lot of time, I'm air dirty laundry. Courtney would be like, "Oh, we should do this," and when it's a we or I, it's a Juan. When are you going to help me and get me to do this?
Yes.
And it's like, I don't want to do it. Like, what? This is your thing. I'm not saying no, but like, so from a leader perspective, I think we drive ourselves crazy because you want to be supportive of someone who's creative or has a vision, but also like you don't know. So, have you ever been that person who has the vision, but no one else does? Like, you're crazy. And I remember that one time you put, I tried to move back to the workplace, but one time, Courtney, I think it was during the pandemic, you put wallpaper up and it was kind of like plaid, like lumberjack, like flannel.
Buffalo plaid, yes.
And I didn't realize you did it. And actually, take notes here. You asked me later, like, do you like it? And I was like, oh, I love it. And you're like, really? And I was like, yeah. You remember this?
Yes.
Is that how it went?
Yeah.
And I remember telling you, I'm so glad you didn't ask me. Do you remember that part?
Yes, I do.
Why are you laughing?
Because it was so funny, because then I realized I need to stop asking you to be a part of everything and just start doing the things that I wanted to do that were creative, because you can't see the same vision that I can.
And then you would get mad at me for not seeing the same vision.
Absolutely. I still do.
And you would also, even when I would be like, well, I don't think I'd like it. And that's what I was like, if you had shown me, I'd be like, I wouldn't want a blue and gray lumberjack in our hallway. I couldn't connect the dots.
Yeah.
So I think that we're all creative, not to be corny, but it's like you got to find your thing. And in the workplace, or any work really, I think we do, even when you have discovered it, but especially when you haven't, because you might call it something else. I see a lot of people like, well, I have high standards, or I think it should be done this way. It's like, no, actually, you've kind of gone rogue, and you've made up this process and flow.
Right.
And now someone else is trying to come in and say, do it differently or do it more efficiently. No. And it's like someone's calling your baby ugly. And, I think this word is very broad, but if someone's creative, I'm not like, hey, hats off to you. Great. Like, I'm happy for you as a person, but I don't want a creative barber. I want a barber who gives me the haircut that I want.
Okay. That's fair.
Now, if I was looking for someone to surprise me, maybe I'd want a creative
I got
barber.
someone for you.
And even this podcast, which, nearing 200 episodes, it is not the same format. It probably will change again. I love that. But also that same spirit of I want nuance and to be, I don't know, make a podcast that I'd want to listen to. I probably could have made 5 times as much.
Right.
And monetized. From where you're sitting watching the podcast, remember the first 5 that I made?
Yes, I do.
How great were they?
They were not good, and I remember telling you that they were not good and that you needed to re-record them because it didn't sound like you.
Yeah.
And that was the whole point, was you were trying to get your voice out there, and then you sounded like someone else.
Yeah. Sound like AI, like that Zoom one that we did.
Oh my gosh, that recording is so weird. We sound like AI versions of ourselves. It's weird.
So in a recent episode, but we're in June now. May comes before June. I had the idea. I was like, hey, let's do this Zoom. I'm dropping off the kids. I'll Zoom, and if it sounds decent, let's put it out there. And it does. Which episode is it?
I don't know. We
Courtney
have a
doesn't
newborn.
Courtney doesn't listen to the podcast.
That is false. I do listen to the podcast as I edit it.
No.
Oh,
what was
on
the
podcast.
conversation about? Sleep training.
Sleep training.
I keep running into people, and actually this is a good you are very creative when it came to sleep training, and still are, as we put that episode out, and our daughter
She stopped
not
sleeping so
slept. I'm like,
well.
the pod gods laughed at us. But Courtney, if you haven't listened to the sleep training, I highly do, even if you don't have kids, but even if you, or especially if you don't sleep well yourself. Courtney took this course and applied it to our son, who's 2, and he sleeps great 98% of the time, about 10, 11 hours, maybe 12 sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And our soon-to-be 3-month-old is just getting there.
Yes.
And right now it's kind of bumpy.
Yes.
But I've said Courtney basically got a PhD in sleep training our kids, and all this preparation that she severely underestimates what it took, talking to certain credible sources, but then also the experimentation. So what's it been like, not to go back to sleep training, but describe the work that it's taken to get our kids to sleep a good night. Is it linear?
No, it's all over the place. And every time that our son would wake up in the middle of the night, I'd be like, I freaking failed. What's wrong with me? I can't get my kid to sleep.
Especially when he calls for me.
That's it. He is on a Juan kick right now. He only wants to hang out with daddy.
T-Rex, get me.
Daddy T-Rex.
But I think it's linear is not wrong. You just got to put the reps in, etc. But I also think it's not necessarily right, and it's not the best way to like troubleshoot.
Yes.
And so when you're creative, you kind of like just throw it all out there, and that sounds great and exciting, but it's also really effing annoying. Like linear is following the IKEA instructions. You'll be fine. But then sometimes I'm like, I got this.
No.
And so I think, not just the people you work with, but you yourself as a creative person, you kind of spot patterns that other people don't. And I think I'm going to say 2 kind of contradictory things. You got to give yourself grace. If you have a creative vision, it ain't going to go smoothly. I use that poor English on purpose. That's part of it. You want to innovate. You don't have a proven track record. That happens with kids in college all the time who want to take the road less traveled. I don't know what to do next. Yeah, guess what? That's what you picked. So if you want to be creative, you don't have a paint by numbers path to follow the whole time. I think you could, especially like people in UX or standard operating procedures. I'd get a creative person to make that, but they don't want to be continually executing that.
Right.
It's like, hey, they're going to pave the way and then they're off to do the next thing. So does it drive us crazy? Yes, I think that's part of it. If you're not driving yourself and other people creative or crazy, dang, that's what's going to sound so cool. If you're not driving other people, but especially yourself crazy, you're probably not being that creative. But also, if all you're doing is driving other people and yourself crazy, and especially by like not doing it, you're not being creative either. It's that sweet spot. It's more like a dance with your randomness of your mind. Lastly, do you think you're more creative today than you thought of yourself?
Yes.
How so?
I actually try, and I realize that it's not going to be perfect, and I don't let that stop me, and I do a lot of like really crazy things lately.
I think those are great little subtle things that people miss, but as we end, I actually try, and I do little subtle things. I think those do more of that, not just Courtney, but those listening, and you'll still drive yourself crazy.
Yeah.
But you'll probably make some good stuff. We'll see you for the next one.
Cool.
I make this show for leaders, those who don't point fingers, but point towards ways they can do better at work. My ask for listening is you share the show on social and or with other leaders, established or aspiring. Until then, no talent, no culture, no excuses.